Good morning. Okay. I am making sure all the distractions are off my desktop as much as possible before I share my screen. Um, but there might still be fun Lisa truths in the background. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Okay. We are here for Am I? Am I sharing? Am I step one
Looks
accomplished?
beautiful.
Awesome. Um, I appreciate when there are questions in the moment that they are asked. You don't have to wait. Please feel free to put it in the chat box, or raise your hand, or just say Lisa, and we'll work with whatever question is coming up for you. We are here for MI, which is one of my favorite topics. This is the description. I just want to make sure we're also clear on we're working with the three-legged stool from CCAR, and it is about treating people as a resource of their own recovery as it is defined to that person. And then there's a huge paragraph, which I will not read or summarize. Um, we're going to look at what we already know. So, what I will be doing during this presentation is actually a lot of the check-ins and practices that we're going to do when we're working with people as a helper. So, we're going to start right here with what we already know. So, I'm going to stop sharing for a hot second. Please put anything you already know, total free association. When you think about MI and you think about coaching, what do you already know? Just throw it in the chat box. What are you coming with knowledge about on this topic? You won't be tested on it. So if you write some acronyms and you don't remember what the acronyms are, but you remember the acronyms, that's fine. That's great. Just throw them in there. No one's going to test you or put you on the spot. Okay, so we've got some open-ended questions. What are we arriving with today? So just in case people cannot see the chat box, I'm going to narrate it a bit. Uh, we've got listening. We've got open-ended questions in there. We've got a lot of listening. We've got asking, empathy, positive reinforcement, um, motivating, trust, curiosity, helping by learning about the person, motivating for positive change, non-judgment, summarize, ask for clarity. Okay, so you guys are good and we're done. Like I'm out. No, what we already know is important. Um, Attitude, understanding. So you're arriving in this conversation today with a depth of understanding about a lot of the content we're talking about. I'm curious if there's any other words or phrases that you would use for what you already know about, like coaching, specifically, like recovery coaching, CCAR style, foundational style. If that changes any of your answers, I just want to kind of narrow that for a second, see, check in if recovery coaching brings up some other associations um, underneath the topic of MI. So I see allowing, relatable, the person as their own resource, truthful, being guided by the person, letting them tell you what they need. open-minded, supportive. Okay. Using experience as a tool and the roles of coach, like friend, community member. Everyone is unique and has their own path. Suggestions, not advice. That's a fun one. So typically in an MI practice, I'm going to do asking for permission and asking what the person already knows. I usually do those two hand in hand. Like, is it okay that we look at what you already know? I could phrase it like that. In MI, you make it your own. That's part of your art, especially as a coach. So these are key pieces of information because the idea of being talked at and lecturing someone with what they already know or what they've already tried, it shuts down the growth process and the change process. And I know I'm not telling you something you haven't experienced. It is brutal to be talked at and then have tell the person, I actually knew all of that. Yes, that is true. And I've tried that and like this is why I don't say anything because it could really be a fragile moment if you don't check in which a person is ready to talk about change and growth and they're coming with so much wisdom and hey, what do you already know about recovery? What do you already know about coaching? Right? And that is a powerful open-ended question to just start in the engagement level of MI. I don't do it enough, and it's very, very helpful in any platform, especially in a group. There will be a range of experience and depth of wisdom, and if you have experienced CCARS trainings, is that as a facilitator, I I don't have the answers for you. I trust that you have the question and the answer, and that you all have a depth of wisdom that is to be shared and listened to and appreciated. So, as people in a training or any learning experience, is that always applies? Is that I want to know how you would answer it. I want to hear your art. I want to hear your style of coaching, how you make that your own. And that's how we all grow is exchanging that. So that's the curiosity too that is embodied in that type of approach, is that I'm really coming from a genuine place of curiosity. I want to know what you know. I want to understand what you know. And I'm open to being uh, different or wrong or whatever is coming up in a judgment that would shut that down. I'm open to it, right? I see some more descriptions in the chat box about the idea that we are, as coaches, helpers. I like the word helpers in MI4. I like it a lot. That we don't have the ability to fix anyone. I am their guide to help them discover what will work. That's a quote from David. So I'm not saying that as my own words. I like to cite a source. Um, and never judgmental, accepting people where they are today. So that's a huge grounding practice. I got you, Kevin. I could repeat that quote. David Grant said, I do not have the ability to fix anyone. I am their guide to help them discover what will work. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit more depth. We're going to play around with this fixing, right? Um, cheerful with empathy. Love these descriptions. So in my coaching practice, I'm grounded in today, right now, this moment. And I can easily drift as a counselor and in many of my curiosity and all these things and be like, what did she say? I will easily go in that direction. I will lean into all this curiosity about anything. And it might not be relevant to that person's change process, but as a coach, it's today. What is how can we work on your recovery today? And that's a big difference. And that's really where we stay in our lane. I see it the most powerful with MI is that it's not driving to the, I could see how hard that was for you, right? Like the pathology. We're talking as a coach, we're going, I could see how rewarding it was for you to get on the other side of that. That's a very different reflection of when we're working with pathology or in the past, and we're working with today, right now. So I appreciate that someone also added where they are today, um, and celebrate, 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 celebrate. There's a lot of wisdom here today. I appreciate your ability and your openness to sharing it and to hearing it from each other, and exchanging it. So let's I'm going to review a couple of different approaches and we'll check in a little bit and then we'll see what's coming up for you guys. So share screen. A beginner's mind. So in CCAR, we're encouraged to always be curious, um, and know that we do not know. I know that I do not know. At the same time, there is a balance of guiding. So there's an openness, but there is a balance. So what we want to start with in an exchange is that kind of beginner's mind. And I think what's really cool about this concept is that I might be familiar with Travis, for example, or I might have met someone in this space. I reset that each time. So that helps my practice to remain curious so I don't shortcut something. So for today, I approach it like, oh, I know everything about Travis, and I know that I know him well, or I know what he likes and what he doesn't like. And if you're like me, that can change. And if you're like a lot of humans, that can change, right? So that practice helps every conversation, in my opinion, but definitely an MI practice. So we're gonna look at a couple of different styles for goal setting. So I figured I would just use the learning objectives to just play around with this a little bit as we start this conversation. So when we're using MI, we have an opportunity to do straightforward goals like this. They're already defined. This is an example of straightforward goals. We're gonna, and a lot of our recovery planning might look like that. This one, bubbles and agenda mapping, is very, very fun. I could not make the circles on my slides, but they are typically in little bubbles, which is just fun. So choosing a path is actually, you could use this tool. I'm sure people have used this before, but for today, we can decide what areas and topics under these learning objectives are going to be our path, right? What is our guide going to be in this learning? Are we being drawn to one thing over the other? Are we looking at one thing as if we know it so well? Because that has wisdom for us too, right? Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, well then it that could be calling for us too to revisit our relationship with that. So under choosing a path, this is also goal setting. We can decide what that looks like, and I left an open uh, option for us. And clarifying. So these are the three styles of our goal setting, and clarifying is taking this kind of vague general idea, right? We're here today to connect with the topic of MI as a coach. Now, in my title and my description, I'd already kind of tightened it and narrowed it to an area of focus. So that might not relate today. We might not want that in this moment. That might not be the best narrowing. So when we're clarifying, sometimes the person has a very vague goal. Sometimes it's helpful to stretch it back out, like we do in the Recovery Coach Academy and stuff. We stretch, scrunch, stretch, right? So the idea too here is that I'm stretching it back out and saying, what does that look like? Do we have a range of skills experience? We have a range of role experience. And then we could practice those equally and or in one area versus more. So that would really focus our goal setting in a little bit of a different way. I see a hand raised, so let me just pause
Yeah,
this
I
first.
wanted to know what are the three styles of goal setting? Did it start with beginners? Could you say that those three?
I got you. So the first one is our straightforward.
Yeah,
The second is choosing a path.
yeah. I got the first two. I missed the first one. I mean, the last two. I missed the first one.
And then the clarifying. Does that make sense? Are we checked in there? You can use these as skills in your practice when you are looking at the topics, especially choosing a path. You want to work alongside someone. Some people need those straightforward. They're saying, I need it concise. I need a straightforward goal. I need it to be structured, clear, learning objectives, measurable. I need the thing. That is what their language is. Some people looking at that choosing a path is overwhelming. I had to stop myself. There are plenty of other bubbles that I could have put in there, right? So that can be very overwhelming to people. And some people really appreciate it laid out like that, all the different things that go under that goal, all the different components. And then clarifying also lets you check in about today, right now. Is that still important? Is that where we're at? It helps as the listener to clarify too, because sometimes we hear something and we encode it, and then we get a response that's definitely it's helpful to be corrected. Oh, I thought the goal was that you wanted abstinence. No, I want to keep smoking nicotine. That doesn't even count, right? And so I want to clarify, wait, is this all substances? Are we doing all substances on this goal? Okay, so it's the goal is about that. I got you. Cool. And that's curiosity and clarifying. That's not coming from a place of bias. Um, so for today, we have a bunch of different. I wanted to model those styles for you so you could see it differently because typically it's straightforward. This is what you're going to learn. And the how you're going to learn it, what is it going to look like, how is it going to unfold, that is the change process. That's what we don't know. That's the beginner's mind, is that every time we have these conversations, I don't know what's going to happen. The last time I talked about MI, someone was crying, sharing a story. I don't know what's going to happen. I have to trust the process and the people here today, and that we will be guided by each other. So I genuinely don't know. And that also helps structure our conversation, and trust that process. If we need more or less, it'll become clear. Any questions so far or things that I can clarify? Oh, I made like a joke already. Can I clarify anything? Okay, so not I, Travis did a poll that is going to be launched, and it is a scale that comes from MI. Um, I would invite you to be as honest as possible as you can on this scale. It's anonymous, so we don't know who says what, and it will give us an opportunity to practice the confidence scale. That's what we're going to do a poll about. So Travis is the poll
I'm the poll
party.
guy. I'm the poll guy. Here we go.
Save the day.
All right. Relaunch. All right. Everyone should see it now. And Lisa, I don't know if you want to kind of walk them through what they're looking at because there is a lot
Yes,
here.
yes. So you have five categories, and you have a scale. In the scale, it goes 0 to 10. We made it 1 to 10. You get the point. Lowest number is not at all confident, all the way to completely confident. So you have five topics, and we're rating your confidence in blank as honest as possible. And then I guess, Travis, you,
Eyes on. Don't worry, I got
okay.
you.
Travis is,
I'm seeing the votes coming through. 3 of 22 people have voted. So if you haven't done so yet, please do. I believe you can vote once per question. When we're finished, when we've got everyone or mostly everyone, I can end the poll and we can share it with the group so that we can see how everyone voted. Sound like a plan, Lisa?
absolutely.
Problem. Got you.
I want to make sure if there's anyone that cannot see it or needs it differently, you can send us a private message if that's comfortable for you, or tell us differently. So no pressure to do it in a specific way.
All right, we've got 19 of 22, 20, 21 of 22. Everyone's give it like another 15, 20 seconds. Get your votes in. Okay. Looks like we got everyone. So I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results so everyone should be able to see these now. Can you, Lisa?
I see it like I can scan through it. Is that the way
Yeah.
everybody sees it?
Yeah.
You can toggle. Okay.
Yep.
Oh man, math is fun for me. So within the categories, the skills from my lived experience, that has the highest percentage of completely confident. As I'm observing, I'm just observing and summarizing. If there's any other observations here, you're welcome to contribute. Uh, I'm curious if anyone feels comfortable kind of participating in this workshop. If you could, if you could work with me on like a mini example using this poll or check-in. If anyone feels comfortable. If not, I'll just make Travis, or I might, no, I won't. I'll make someone do it.
Do it, or David volunteered also.
Okay, we have David. Okay. Okay. Um, so David and Josh are comfortable. So I might work with both of you just to show some different styles and have some different chairs that we can work with. Um, David, if you're comfortable, I'm curious about something.
Yes.
Do you believe there's a relationship between CCAR and me as the facilitator?
I mean, obviously there is. You're a facilitator. And so that automatically tells me that there is a recognition and an acceptance that you will represent their organization in a healthy and good way, and that you are valued by them because they're willing to allow you to facilitate and they see value in your experience, in your acumen, everything. So absolutely there's a relationship.
Thank you, David. I'm curious if there's anyone who has a different opinion or believes otherwise. Is there anyone representing a different opinion? Okay, so David crushed it so well that he described it we are so confident. We are completely confident in David's description of what that was. He encompassed everything. Um,
Okay. Hi, Michelle. I do think he crushed it, and saying that obviously the company hired you and has the utmost confidence in you to deliver their message that they believe as a company, and part of that is that you also are going to come up with your own strategies and deliver them effectively according to the company's guidelines. You're carrying yourself just in these few minutes professionally, organizing things well, and again, being personable and wanting to delve into what we already know, and then searching even more for clarification.
Michelle, can I ask you a question?
Okay.
Is that yes?
Yes.
Depends
Certainly.
on the question, possibly. Um,
Certainly.
would you like your in your opinion, if I bomb this, if I really lit this on fire pretty bad, um, would I have the power to affect your association with CCAR?
No. No, I would probably give a call to the higher ups and say what I felt, went, downhill, potentially wrong, but it definitely wouldn't affect me as a direct result of wanting to be a recovery coach. I would just say, I think that, in my opinion, Lisa's skills were not top notch, and I'm not sure if this is how you want the company to come across, but it definitely wouldn't affect my opinion as far as the company. I would just definitely be making a call, and saying who can I speak with in order to get my opinion across.
Okay. Um, what if you did that and then you saw me on another webinar invite from CCAR shortly after you raised this concern?
I always believe in a second chance. So that to me also would not affect, I would say, you know what? Everybody has an off day, and different topic, and whatever, and that's just my personal belief of giving somebody a second chance. So that would not affect me signing up for another class with you.
Is there a way it could be too soon, like the next week for the second chance?
Um, I'm just trying to think of always second chances. Usually it wouldn't be like the next day or even the next week because uh, that kind of stumps me a little bit in that I believe the next week would be fine because it would have given me enough time to, it probably would depend now that I'm thinking about it on if the company had gotten back to me and gave me a response about, the situation with you in that prior, webinar. And if they explained to me, her grandmother was in the hospital and she had an incident, or some kind of, or even just not even excuse, like it was an off day or whatever. We've been working with Lisa trying to almost give me, reiterating back to me the confidence that I should have in your abilities to perform the webinar. So I like the next week would be fine. So
Thank you.
as long as I think that would boost my confidence in hearing back from the company when initially that day I had sent them, some information, and if they had gotten back to me, kind of easing my opinions about you as an instructor.
Thank you.
Next question.
If you don't know this already, you could feel like I just have questions on questions on questions on questions on questions. And
Yeah, well, I'm a curious person as well, and I could, I would do the same thing and go on and on. So,
thank you for sharing and sharing your truth, because you also got some feedback too that there are some beliefs about like giving other chances, and there's no how that's right, wrong, or whatever. It allows the wisdom of how what's your truth? What would it look like for you? And I appreciate that as a share in this setting. It's helpful. Um, so what I see a hand. I also, David, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just, you know, when I speak, I recognize that I don't know anything. I only know my experience. And in the question that you propose to Michelle, and I think of, when we give another chance, where I've come from and what I've learned is in recovery, I will give every single chance a person needs because things literally 30 seconds ago, I am a different person now, just with, a few moments of interaction. It has changed my perception. It has changed my experience. And it has, if I'm open to it, it has allowed me to grow. And so it could be a phone call at midnight and I've slipped. Okay, what can I do? What do you need? And the same person 12 hours later, you know, comes away and goes, yeah, oh, thank you. I feel so much better. I've got this, I'm on this road. I will be at a meeting tomorrow, whatever. 12 hours later, they call and I slipped again. I will give them a chance and anyone a chance until they walk away. At that point, I can't help anymore. I can't learn anymore. But if they're reaching out as we are reaching out to CCAR, to you, there's always a chance. And it's hard in the addiction idea. It's hard to be let down and disappointed when you see someone moving towards growth, but just can't get a grip. You deserve another chance.
Thank you, David. I saw you went back on mute. If I have your permission, I just,
Sure,
um, you know what it's like to be the person who needed another chance.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, I think the listeners might hear that because you had some reactions too from people offering that.
It's hard when people give up on you. And I don't ever want to give up on someone.
Yeah, yeah. If I could stay with this, to want to be forgiven, you also have that experience,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. But
How did you learn?
I let go of that.
How did you learn to do it for yourself?
Oh, to be honest, a lot of LSD, a lot of looking in the mirror, a lot of journaling, and a lot of understanding that I can't change any of you. The only thing I can change is how I choose to react to it. Recovery taught me I have a choice. And that just freed. I mean, you think of the backpack of the rocks that we carry in addiction, in trauma, in life. There's a point where we have to come to a realization that there are no heroes. There's no one coming to rescue you. You have to make the internal choice that my health and my well-being, and it feels selfish, but my health and my well-being is the most important thing in the world. And when I get to that point, all of a sudden there's a freedom and there's this capacity and this desire to share and to help other people. And I don't know their path, but they'll tell me. And if I'm listening well enough, I might even be able to help them expand those things. And that's where I've come from and where I go.
Thank you, David.
My pleasure.
Thank you. You even added the importance scale. Talked about the most important. There's so much wisdom when this is the most, when this drives the most important place. And I think there's a shared value in this space of wisdom and learning and experience, because I saw that from the poll too, is that the lived experience has a lot of space in this learning today. The lived experience is one of the confidence drivers and the wisdom. The way you came to learn something in your recovery is a very important and powerful tool of self-disclosure, but also incorporating MI there too, because it has a guide in your lived experience. It could be told through a story or self-disclosure. It could also be told through a reflection. It could be told through a question, a summary with a question. So that's your art and your style that comes into play. And if we are using MI in balance with self-disclosure, we get a really nice combo of the objective tools, what they taught us, or what we're asking people to look at in their recovery process, and our story. And that was a really nice art and model of that. So thank you for that. I have a couple. Kevin, I see you.
I have a question. I thought that was, first of all, thank you, David. And I thought that was really a great exchange. And it made me think of this question because well, the way you framed it afterwards about his lived experience and all of our lived experience providing lessons that are unique to peer recovery. And the question I have is, what has lived experience given me in terms of wisdom? To be able to articulate that the way that exchange just illuminated, right? Like you're talking about his wisdom around second chances and the worthiness of people and second chances, third chances, never giving up on someone. That's something that's wisdom we only have through lived experience. And I'm wondering if you can articulate other, I know it sounds a little academic, but other bullet points of wisdom you only get through lived experience. You know, it would be helpful for me to know that because I sometimes doubt whether I know anything through my lived experience. Is there a list? Thank you.
Well, what would you add to it?
Turn
Oh,
over
shoot.
every stone, open every single door. You may get hurt, but you will learn.
What would you, Kevin, if I asked you the same question and I affirmed, if I said, you know what it's like to not be forgiven, is that true for you, Kevin?
Yes, I know what it's like not to be judged. I've gained empathy
Okay.
through So those are the things. I mean, I could
Okay.
go down a list. It would be a partial list because my brain won't think about it because it's clogged up with self-doubt and other baggage. But it would be nice to look at that list. It would be very reaffirming and it would help me as a coach.
I got you. I got your list. I got you, Kevin. I'm
Thank you.
I'm
Great.
also curious if you have a memory. If you don't, that's fine. And you also don't have to give any permission to share any more than you have. I'm curious if you remember how you learned empathy. How did you learn it?
Through pain, through my own pain, through knowing what it feels like, to be judged, to be left out, to be all those things. So it was through my own pain, and also through you know, yeah, that's what I would say it is. Through negative experiences, and I've often said this in conversations, even flippantly, I've said, it's some of my worst, most miserable experience and harshest treatment that is the seed of some of my greatest gifts. And so, who knows how this thing works? So, I would say that's the answer. It's through my own pain and struggle. I can
You learned,
recognize the lines on people's faces that pain and struggle creates. The posture that pain and struggle and harsh treatment, what that does to your posture, what that does to your face, what that does to your attitude. I recognize that because of what it did to me. That's lived experience. So how do you put that how do you wrap that up and put a bow on it? You know, because it's important, I think, to be able to simplify this. If peer recovery advocates and peer coaches are going to be given the same respect as a clinician who read it in a book or who, you know, learned it in a classroom, if we're to be given that same respect, then I think it's important to make that list and to be able to stand in a debate or in a discussion, just to have a discussion where you can advocate for yourself, and that language comes quickly to mind. Does that make sense?
Do you remember how you learned to be in your pain? To sit with your pain?
A lot of therapy and a lot of work, inner work, a lot of reflection, a lot of endurance, resilience. Just you learn it because you have no choice, right? I mean, it's that or die.
Yes. Yes. The fight to learn something and the reasons, if we look at MI and we look at preparatory change talk, DARN, if you've ever seen that acronym, desire, ability, reasons, need. I'll repeat it. I'll make sure you have it. But I can have the desire and reasons all day, and I can't do it. Or I could not want it and need to do it. Right. And I heard that, Kevin, your share had those elements balanced through it too, of the idea of how you learn something, and what approach looks like to you that's effective is also maybe what you needed at the time, or the path that turned that pain into purpose. That's the story. That's your lived experience and journey. And there are many pieces of the how. And I'm sure the listeners also heard that too, is that it wasn't, what I would summarize in the two shares is that it wasn't one thing. That as a truth, it wasn't one thing that taught, or it was a variety of things. It was a combination of things. It was a range, and that's welcome. And that to me is sometimes what I believe reflects the actual weight of this condition, right? This is a big oppressive disease, condition, diagnosis, whatever you want to put there.
I'm
And
going to give you one that I love what you're saying, and I totally appreciate that. And I'm going to give you one. You asked the question, what other skills or wisdom do you get only through life experience? And I'm going to throw one out that is going to, I think, will be unexpected, but it's one that I've attached to recently, because you talk about the how of our process, because I don't just try to, this is, I don't know, it's got, I have a bit of both a scientific mind and a very feeling, creative, arty mind. So I always try to assemble the process afterwards, create a framework, and to understand what the elements are that were at play as I was, in a going through a spiral or going through something. And afterwards, I'll sit down, I'll journal, I'll write about it. So here's something that I've recently incorporated into, believe it or not, a somatic exercise practice that now I've expanded out in. It's improvisation. And that's, I think, what you were just saying. It's like so there's this expression I learned from a corporate guy coach. It's got, when you're an entrepreneur, you make it up and you make it happen. And when you're in survival mode, as a kid, like I was in, and it's coming at you from 4 different places and there's nowhere to go, you make it up and you get creative about how to survive. And there's no rhyme or reason to it, but it becomes a habit. It becomes something that you learn. That resilience becomes something that becomes baked in at a young age when you're in an environment that's violent or scary or unsafe. And so improvisation is another way of saying I'm creative and I can make it up on the fly. You know, what do you think of that? I'm curious.
What do you think about
I
that,
love it, but
Kevin?
I'm curious if that resonates with you or anyone else here.
I see some resonance. I see some
Yeah.
connection. Um, I see the list forming. The
Oh,
list,
is there a list forming? I
the
didn't.
list, the list is forming. Is kind of what I'm feeling and seeing and noticing, that the list is happening of the how or the skills. And I would challenge the question even further to talk a little bit about the exchange of how we use our language as recovery coaches, especially with MI, is that abstinence is a component of how a person might land in a more stable state. Um, Abstinence is not a teacher necessarily. It could be a teacher and a way to something, but there are plenty, lots of people who are completely abstinent and have not learned the wisdom we are talking about here today. And you know this, and I see so there's also a piece of this that is hard to assume is there in recovery. And I stand on these beliefs too, that not everyone in recovery is a talented recovery coach. Not everyone in recovery is a coach. There are plenty of amazing coaches in recovery. That as a factor is not the way that we know that they're effective. So there are these ideas underneath these conversations that help us unearth a belief. This is very powerful MI because we listen underneath all of this. We listen to what is being exchanged and shared, and is there a common belief here? Are we making an assumption? Are we curious about something? What's happening underneath that? And there is a lot of stuff going on in the bigger picture about what abstinence might look like or what recovery really is. So the definition of what recovery is something we have to kind of model and role model in our challenges in our life. And I'm seeing more contributions in the chat too, is that people are entitled to have their own suffering and their worst day, and that abstinence is not necessarily sobriety, like a sober mind. And this is a DBT practice. If anyone's familiar with DBT, there's a lot of language around that, like a clean mind, a clear mind, sober mind. And that we are hearing in the spirit of MI, the presence of the person is the key, is that presence that is locked into that person is able to hear and witness and be with the other. And I would even say that that is what helps those early childhood experiences, right? Like the kid that had to figure it out, like Kevin was referencing, right? And had to do that because of their environment, that the presence that we have right there is already a transformation in the relationship. And if we could add all the other things that we know, right? The non-judgment, the compassion, the forgiveness, we could add all that. That's great. The presence to begin with is already healing when we show up for someone and they are our entire focus, and we're regulated and we're able to be curious about what they are going through and what their change process is. Then we're the person they never had. No one's ever done that. To offer presence is not necessarily that easy. And there are days that we can't offer it. And that's okay too, right? The humanness of that is that I'm not always present. And I have a responsibility to people that I have to be present to be able to deliver really great listening in MI so I could hear underneath what's being said, what's not being said, because our role is to remove barriers. And skilled MI will do that quite quickly. It will get it will get through some of those barriers where I was I was using statements actually. I was using affirmations. If I was wrong, I have to be willing to be corrected. If it was no, that's not true for me, Lisa. I know what it's like to be forgiven. I've never experienced that. I have to be willing to go, okay, understood, right? Like that has to be there because my role is as the person who's a mirror, not to be right or to direct the process, but to guide it. Um,
Can I
I
just
see.
say one more thing, and that's it, and something you triggered for me that I think is so important and so important for me to have heard. I've been learning the hard way that that presence you're talking about, that experience that's baked in from a young age, that gives you a certain, street cred with somebody, or gives you that palpable feeling that this person has been through that. That's great, and it can't be taught, right? But without the skills, if I don't learn the skills of how to deliver the language to a recovery or to somebody, then I can really make a mess of things. And so even I was a shitty student in high school. I never learned how to learn. So this has been challenging for me to kind of come back to school and to respect the process of learning and think I don't know everything, because all that affect that I've acquired from my past is also present. And so it's the combination of the lived experience with the skill set like MI and appreciative inquiry and the different things that we need to learn. And I've gained an all new respect for that very recently. And you pointed to that. I just want to point that out. I can't rest on my laurels. I have all this lived experience because I'll walk into a situation and screw it up for somebody and make it harder for somebody. That's all I want to say. That's more of like a note to self. Anyway, thanks.
That was I heard humility. So if I was going to summarize that back, is that took humility to share that, or that's what I
It
heard.
comes from pain.
Sure. That's uh so that's also a piece of a share that to me it could be humility, to somebody else it could be different. We could hear and pull gems and give them back. And I was not corrected, but it was also like it was nice to hear it comes from pain. It was nice to hear that. That to me is a don't reframe something that doesn't need to be reframed. This is how you hurt people with MI, or you use something and you just skip over that. Kevin said it quite perfectly, right? If I go, thanks for, or whatever that MI skill is that I'm trying to do, right? Oh, I heard humility. It's pain. It's pain that is threaded through
No,
Kevin's
you are
share.
100% right. I get it. And I appreciated it very much that you recognize that, but it landed like, it wasn't meritorious. I did, even though I appreciated it and it was encouraging. I felt like from lots of mistakes. I didn't mean to correct you like I'm doing now. I'm sorry.
Please correct me. Please do that, right? That's it's uncomfortable. And we need it in these exchanges and these conversations because we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about our lives. And the idea of am I doing harm or our role doing harm is that we actually can reflect something hurtful we can influence or direct someone in a way that hurts, and that you will know it. I've lived it. You know when someone's judging you, or you know when someone's pushing you in a direction. So we actually can activate someone not to change by pushing them in that direction or reflecting what we are trying to accomplish. And that is our responsibility not to do. And that's what I like about the RCP and I like about CCAR, is that they want your art and they want your science. What separates you, the designation, is that we use an evidence-based practice. We use MI. We're not speaking like we're speaking in a meeting or to a friend or a counselor or whatever. We're speaking with the person as the resource, and we keep that integrity no matter what. And it's very hard to do because we also then have to fix it if we shift in different directions, which happens all the time, right? That I have to adjust my course because I just went over here and I veered out of my lane. And that's my responsibility to fix, not be in the other lane, like, oh, well, I guess we're getting off this exit. No, I have a responsibility to correct that too. And that we role model that in our recovery coaching. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of where I see this happen. And we'll talk a little bit more about the skills and the kind of common traps we get into. Is the poll up?
I can put it back up.
No, it just popped up for me.
Oh,
Never mind.
okay.
Do, do, do,
Got
do,
it.
do, 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 do. Oh, okay. Got it.
You can just close it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
No,
Travis.
no problem.
What we're talking about here is if this is not familiar to you, you will have plenty of opportunity to stretch into this. This is our source of how we treat people like a resource and what we learn in the Recovery Coach Academy. This definition, any of this content is from the 4th edition. So this idea of partnership, acceptance, compassion, and empowerment is you all arrived here with this. I mean, it's in the chat. It's evident. It's clear. You all arrived with this, which is the spirit of MI. Again, is that teachable? Not necessarily. But do we also exchange wisdom in that direction? No, I evoke it, or I'm curious about it and want to draw it out. And what we're experiencing here today is what happens when a person draws it out of the people that are present and that is welcome there. So you already are arriving with this as participants, which is a powerful gift. I wouldn't say I could always assume that or know that. Now, this idea of neutrality and how we know we're treating someone like a resource and what gets in the way or what could get in the way, right? That this might be a practice that we are managing our stuff from, but also to just check in with ourselves. How neutral am I? Why am I curious about one thing versus another? Why do I want to direct the conversation here versus there? Because in your MI skills, it's what you reflect and direct that becomes clear about what you believe, whether you're intentional with it or not, right? You are the person eliciting that, and you're responsible for what that looks like when it's not neutral. And I'll show you a little bit of what it looks like, not neutral. I just want to check in. Have people seen this decisional balance? Have people worked with this? Let me just see if you worked with it. Like, I don't know how to do that. Raise hand. Okay. Okay. So we're gonna do it together. It's quite fun. So we're gonna go through a couple more of the tools. MI has some great tools that you can use, especially if you get stuck, but it helps your practice. What we typically see is people doing pros and cons of just the change for days, all day long. They'll do pros and cons of sobriety, right? So we're always doing this about the advantages and disadvantages of no change and change. We're never doing it in one direction. So this framework will capture what you might experience as ambivalence, because it might be, because it probably is, because we're not known for being great with change as a species. Okay, we're not necessarily just like skip. We can't even change a seat, in the RCA. Like when we make you change seats, some of you didn't experience that because the virtual learning, it's a crisis, right? We're like, oh man, like I literally will think about leaving. I'm like, I don't want to change my seat. And this is me today, true for me, right? So what we want to look at and nurture is that there are advantages of no change. And they're very important to acknowledge. So I'm just curious, is there anyone like, you can't fake it, but is there anyone like actively thinking of a change, like in your job or relationship or whatever, just change versus, is there anyone that could work with me just for a few, especially if you haven't? Let me just pause there for a few. Oh, Josh, let's do this, Josh.
Let's go.
What's your change, Josh? What are you thinking about? Change versus no change?
I went through a huge decision to leave my past career, which is like high tech sales. I've done it my whole career and I hated it for the vast majority of my career, but it was like the quote unquote easy button because the money was good and I knew it and it was as uncomfortable as it was for me. It was also comfortable in its familiarity, but I reached a point about a year ago where I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. The cost is just too high to my heart, soul, family, everybody else, because I was so far from the person I wanted to be. And I wanted to pivot into recovery, just in transparency. I'm 13 years incredibly happy and contentedly sober and number of sponsees and all of that. And I just feel like I have a lot to give, and I want to bring along as many people on this journey that I have as that I can. And so I made the change, and I'm talking to you, learning about MI, and I've taken the RCA class and ethics and spirituality, and like I'm ramping up a whole new career.
Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
Um, I'm gonna put some points on the decisional balance. Uh, and I'm gonna check back in with you, Josh, if I have your permission.
You can, of course.
So let me show you so you can do this alongside someone. Of course, MI should always be alongside someone. Oh, I don't know. I can't edit it. I can't edit it while screen sharing. Bummer. Can I? I heard in advantage, I heard that there was a cost. I believe you said your heart and soul. There was a cost to your being
Hmm.
to be at that job. And I'm not sure if anybody else heard it, but there were pros. So Josh started with the pros. Good money, it's good, it's easy. So as a listener, whether you're doing this on paper or not, it's very helpful to listen to it like this. You can use this format as a listener. I heard the pros first. And there was, oh, and by the way, huge cost to the fiber of being. So that was one item that potentially took the whole 25 laundry list of pros right off the table for me as the listener,
Right.
right? And there's also points in what I'm listening to in that story is that I would imagine that you, that Josh, for you in that career, you had already had people try to push you in either direction. Like, don't you see this is costing you? Da, da, da. But you got this, that battle, whether it's with you or not, you had other people do that. Is that a correct assumption?
I mean, that's really, really perceptive. And one of the primary challenges I had is my wife, who I love dearly, and we rescued our marriage, blah, blah, blah. Like, she is really supportive in a number of ways, but she's also has financial fear. So for her, like, well, so now we won't have a job that provides health care. I'm like, we can work our way through that. And we've also saved enough that we're okay. Like, we're good. We can take the time to build this. Um, but she was always like, no, go back to that job because it provides family stability, financial, like she was very good at coming up with an even longer laundry list of, why I should not. She saw it as a big risk to leave that job, whereas I saw it as a huge risk to stay in it. So there was a lot of open discussion we had to have to sort of come to where I am today.
Josh, if you're comfortable adding a little more, did you move her from where she was?
Uh, Yes, and the sort of asterisk you hear in my voice, or the parenthetical sort of sentiment here, is not to the degree that like I would love and hope. Like, right, we all want a partner to be like, oh my God, that's amazing, and I'm so glad that you're doing that, and it fits your personality, and I can only imagine how like that was. I never got her there, but I did get her to the acceptance of I'm not going to do that other job, and to stand by me and support me as I pursue what I'm doing.
Thank you. I am balancing closed questions. I'm doing closed questions as a check-in. Like, so whenever I'm using a closed one, it's up to the person to answer it closed. And I like I like that it was yes with the
Okay.
asterisks, right? Um, if you saw that as a listener too, there was a pause. And for me, if I wanted to stir the pot, which I always do, is that is always Phil would be proud, is that that cost to your heart and soul could potentially be in the relationship. It could move in the change to a con that it could cost the heart and soul of the relationship.
Right. The cost of no change, right? Like, so I think
Right.
that's
Is
what we're
that
talking
for
about here.
you? And then that's a pro in your change. You got your fiber of your being, and there's a con that can match there in the relationship, that could cost something there. And we know this with change. We've experienced this with change where it can spiral into other changes. It can also create a pull and a push and it's a value sort. If anyone's done a value sort, if there's a opposition that can happen, which is I'm not going to choose this over myself.
Hmm.
And if I choose myself first and you are in opposition of that, then
Hmm.
that becomes another pull of I don't care if you support it or not, right? That can become a huge area in the relationship of a doubt, a concern. So you can have that kind of spin off. So if I was coaching in a potentially hurtful way or harmful way, I would lead that. I would, I already let it in my question. Did you move her
Hmm.
from that? I tried to be as objective as possible. My truth as the listener was already, I really hope she could get behind this. This had to happen. as a listener. That's
Mhm.
my truth in hearing that.
Mhm.
My objective was, did you move her from that? And that still had a flavor of, you could tell I wanted her to move,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
you see my self-disclosure in that, because her staying in that space to me was not okay. So
Yeah.
I had already had all that as the listener, and also Josh's contribution of it, of this kind of dilemma and acknowledgement that this is her fear, right? She's not in this course, right? Valid fear. He already answered it. She stayed there, right? It's like, I already, yeah, no, I get the fear. We check that box. So move along accordingly, right? So there's an assumption now I have, well, and so that's how quickly that is led.
Hmm.
That is very, very quick in terms of what I believe and what I would coach in what direction and why and what my beliefs are. As a listener, it was, I was hearing, and this is also a check back summary, right? Is that you hear a, yeah, and I want it would be helpful, right? This is MI language too. Helpful versus harmful. It would be helpful if she was less fearful. That's objective, right? It would be helpful if she was less fearful. You respect her by taking care of the concerns, right? All sorts of reflections and affirmations in that conversation of, that's important to you, and at the same time it was already not an option for you to stay, right? So that's off the table. Did you hear that as listeners? Like you said, Josh, you told us about the change you already made. This happens a lot, where people will start working with us already having made a change, that
Right.
it can very quickly, you could get away from it or integrate it. Like, you made that change, you're on that path, you took the courses, you're here, you're pursuing it, you're living in a very big change.
Mhm.
And I made a lot of assumptions too, that you were in recovery. You said 13 years. You were in recovery there. You could have went that way and you didn't. Is that a true assumption? You've
Can
been in
you can
recovery.
you restate it? Because I lost the thread.
You were working that job
Hmm.
while in recovery.
Yes, correct.
So you got into recovery working a job that eats your spirit.
It's
So
largely
do you
why I
see?
drank and drugged the way I did.
So also you got into recovery in that.
Yeah.
That is what an affirmation is like. Did I hear that you recovered in that
Hmm.
environment? Because it's not good job. It's not a compliment. Because I'm listening and I'm starting to get a picture that's like
Hmm.
way more powerful, has so much underneath it, that is so, it needs to be voiced and acknowledged from me as a facilitator or a coach or whatever, is to say you recovered in that and then pursued it, and you took care of your partner's concerns, right, about this change. You did it responsibly. And yeah, maybe and you added to it. It was part of the reason. That job was part of the reason that you were unwell, Josh. You
Hmm.
added that, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that unwellness is never an exchange that we want to be in, right? We don't want to be unwell in a relationship, to be unwell at work, to be, it's not, it's, they affect one another.
Can I
Uh,
just, I want to add something that you did that I think is really important and will be a part of my practice. You went back into, by you stating like you recovered and began that journey in an incredibly difficult job that was just, we'll leave it at an incredibly difficult job. It gave me something positive to hang on to, like a little star in a life where early in recovery, like I had no stars. Like I had no belief that I had done anything good in my life and that I'd let my kids down and my wife down. And we all crash. Well, many of us crash land into recovery and we're just so completely devastated. As a coach, to be able to sift through the rubble and find something meaningful of value, of virtuous action, like whatever that might be, but to ask the questions to get them to say something and give them positive credit for doing something, even if it's really small. Like it is so incredibly important to give somebody in recovery something positive that they did to hang on to. A little bit of hope that like they can grow from there. It was really beautifully done, Lisa. That's
Thank you. It was your truth. And
Hmm.
I heard it, and I actually had a wish. So here's the self-disclosure. I had a wish when I heard it, and I recognized that it was true, that there were more people that would have the ability to do what you did, because you would have role modeled it for my son. You would
Hmm.
have role modeled it for other people. That we need more role models that do the hard thing when it matters, right? Because you use the word easier. You said it was the easier one. And for me, it's like I the idea of success and what we've been taught and
Oh.
everything, your share challenged that. So I had this wish that there was that. And for me to have that wish means that there's absence of that.
Mhm.
That is not a common thing in my life. That's true for me, that I see that or experience that a
Hmm.
lot. Does that make sense, Josh?
I
Like,
mean, the defining of the term success is so skewed where we like I live in Fairfield County, Connecticut. The concept of success is so narrow and it's so life limiting that, am I a success now as a recovery coach? I'm building a practice. I'm learning how to do that. Am I a success in my life? Um, I'm content where I am. I made a big move that took a huge toxin out of my life. That's successful. Like, is it successful by how other people define it? I'm learning that that doesn't matter. How I feel when I put my head on the pillow and, and I'm content. Am I always blissful? No. Do my kids irritate me as much as I love them? Sure, I'm a human being, but the change that I made foundationally, like, just opened up my life. And again, it's the broadening of that definition of success that we get chained by. And we got I the more people I can help break those chains of success, um, I think the world will be a better place.
yeah. And there's some acknowledgement of that shared principle too. So thank you for adding that,
Yeah, sorry
because
for keeping the mic so long.
there's nothing to apologize for. Your wisdom has, for me, it's already transformed me, and I appreciate that you have the mic, that you, the people in here that are willing to take the mic, thank you for taking it. The ones who aren't, thank you for listening and offering your presence. You don't always have to contribute in a certain way. It's the idea that nobody judged anybody, nobody corrected someone, nobody told somebody their truth or misused the chat box. It's what didn't happen too. So
Mm.
like there's no, the contribution in this space is very powerful, and it lets the learning happen. And that is a live then practice, right? Because this is not fake, right? So it also allows an emotion to be present for the listener. So that's a vulnerability that's not always available. And in your self-care as a coach, I often encourage people that if you're struggling, that you don't have to show up in that way. That self-care, your self-disclosure, whatever, that might be your form of self-care that day. And
Mhm.
that's a very powerful thing, is that you don't ever have to feel drawn to show up a specific way. Is that and that's where the MI skills help you too. Is
Mhm.
that when you feel this pressure, or if you feel these definitions and these, I want to do right by this person, the list that I owe Kevin tremendously in bullet points, but like how you want to show up, if you know that's not possible, right? That you have a ton of tools right there, that you could still be present, that you could still be compassionate and offer partnership and say, what is the best use of our time today? What do we want to do? What does that look like for you? And there might be days that you can't stretch into it, and that's okay. There's a lot of permission there to do so. And it matters a lot when other people are able to share that space. So I appreciate that, because that's what the exchange is. I know we're kind of at time. Um, I want to give back any few minutes if there's anything to clarify or address, as we kind of formally close this out. If Travis, do you have like announcements or anything you need to do?
Not really. Let's round of applause for Lisa, though. How about that? So let's start there. Oh, look, I just raised my own hand there. How about that? Lisa, yeah, thank you. Many of you are webinar members. I've already updated your attendance in ProTrack, so you can log right in and complete your evaluation. You'll get your CEs that way. But that's really all I have. Thank you all so much for being here. I learned a ton. Lisa, you're awesome. It was great seeing you again. I'll hang out for a few minutes after. I do have to run in about 10:15, but if anyone else has any other questions, that goes for you too, Lisa. If you want to chat, I'll be here for a few, but that's all I got. Anything else from you?
No, I can share any of the tools or whatever you need. You can email me or contact through Travis or whatever. They're all readily available. So don't ever hesitate to reach out if you want more of something. It's never bothersome, and I'm more than happy to add or give resources or whatever you need if you want more.
Great.
Can't
That
give you
sounds good.
less, but okay.
Okay. Well, I think a good way to do it, Lisa, why don't you just send me what you have and I'll share it out with everyone that was here. And that way everyone gets to leave with something. That sound good, everybody? Already saw some
Absolutely.
thumbs. All right. Cool. I do what I can around here. You guys are
Yeah.
great. Thank you all.
I'll
Lisa,
put my
did you change your last name when you entered this field, or was that something that
I
was
never changed my last name through several marriages, divorce. My name is my name,
I love it.
and it is not fake, and I am not changing it.
That's
But that
awesome.
is, thank you for asking, Josh.
It's a beautiful name and perfectly apropos for what you do. You're very talented and looking forward to learning more from you for sure.
Thank you. I'm going to put my email in the chat. You can use that email. You can always, I'm going to put my number in there so you have it. That's my phone number. Um, I have to do two methods of contact, because if you don't hear from me, you might have to double. Sometimes I might be buried at emails. It's okay. It's okay. We're gonna get there. So please, if you don't hear from me, it's not, I probably didn't see it. I probably did not. So you could double, triple Lisa and call my attention to something, because it's likely that I'm not as responsive as I want to be one day.
Lisa, that chart of change versus no change, like any tools like that would be super, super helpful because I'm always looking for ways to enter into certain kinds of discussions, and that's a really good example. So if you have other
Okay.
types of,
And I'm happy you said that, Josh. everyone should have the fourth edition only of MI. Whenever
Okay.
MI comes out with a new edition, they kind of just reset it, which is very helpful. So if you're
Okay.
learning MI, get the fourth edition.
Okay.
That tool is in there.
Okay.
I make it live. I make different versions of it. I don't like the printed ones, but I'm gonna Travis is gonna share this back out to you guys of like
Okay.
the PowerPoint slides. But just so you have it, it has tons of tables and it does have a list, a few lists, Kevin. It does have some, it has it has some very helpful like defined concrete exercises that we did in our conversation that are kind of stacked there for you. So that is the best investment, is to own the book and have it. And then the tables that are included in it is how we came up with the poll, how Travis did the poll actually. But those scales and the rulers, that's MI straightforward. That's their scale out of the book of confidence. So those are straight out of fourth edition. Don't worry about the first, second, third, and think you have to get those, get the fourth and work with that one.
Okay.
That's the most recent. And I will
Okay.
send you, I will send along some stuff in the slide deck.
Amazing. Thank you.
Lisa,
Thank you.
do you do other trainings? Are there other opportunities to train or take a course with you, or what would you recommend?
I do. I have not been training as much. I always will train MI. Travis and I were talking about that this morning. It's my favorite topic. Um, so I've done the RCP interviews. I've helped students if they take the if they do the interview and they want to practice. So I do a lot of one-on-one. I find that more helpful when it's like this topic. So I do have some different trainings that I've done on a more private basis more recently. I do train the Recovery Coach Academy and like ethics and the CCAR stuff. And then I have a couple of spin-offs that are uh, I'm an art therapist, so they're kind of like creative storytelling and stuff like that. So they're not as active right now, but yes, I do offer them. And if they're not live and I'm not offering them, I could still work on a one-on-one if there's a topic that you wanted to practice for your interview and after the interview, or you just wanted to go over it. I think that helps
That's
the
great.
learner. Yeah,
Great.
yeah,
I'll reach out about that.
yeah.
Thank you.
And shout out to
Thank,
CCAR for like letting me do that.
thank you so much. This was awesome.
Not cheating.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.